DFTW, yeah, you.
Welcome back, episode 8, Drawing from the Well. This episode's about change, so we're going to change it up a little bit. Normally I'm sketching on top of some watercolor painting. Today I'm just going to be busting it out in a little sketchbook with a black pen. Keep it loose, keep it fresh, gotta love that. This episode's a little bit of a response to the first episode where the subject was kind of losing our tribes, being separated, and this is kind of a response to that episode in a way that you can kind of bring it back and kind of reform something bigger. I think this new way is to separate you from who you best jive with, and you're reinserted into some other system that better benefits a larger system. Essentially, you're kind of being plucked out of your tribe, your tribal clothing is being removed, and then you're being assigned a new outfit that better suits the larger system. So even if that's the case, which it totally is, I think it's the only way to kind of fight back is to change your tune. And what I mean by that is a tribe is kind of something that's maybe like stuck in place. It's like clothing, it's like markings, whatever it is, but it's a very physical sense of being. Whereas like if you can think of a tune, like you carry a tune or play a tune on a guitar or an instrument, it's kind of this like frequency, it's this kind of, but it's a little bit more liquid than say like a t-shirt with a slogan on it. If there's a t-shirt with a slogan on it, it's kind of locked in, it just is what it is. But a tune can kind of vary from moment to moment almost, and it can be suited for whatever tune you're encountering or associating with. So I think it's just a little bit more of a liquid way to exist in a world where everything is so trying to agitate or stimulate or move you around. So if you can kind of maybe think about it like humming a tune or carrying a tune, and you're just got to kind of check in and think to yourself, what kind of tune am I carrying right now? And if it's like like that might get you through a certain thing that you need to get through, something heavy or something where you need a little bit of heavy energy. But if you're just carrying that heavy energy all day, your whole world might become heavy, And on the reverse of that, if you're just carrying a sweet, loving tune, you might not be able to use that in a scenario where you might need to tune it up a little bit. So it's kind of just, think about it like a radio station. You just tune into the radio station styling that best suits the situation versus maybe being like, nope, I only have this one station, I only listen to this one thing, that's all I do all day, that's all I use it for. There's just has to be a way to be a little bit more liquid in this modern world. There's just too many inputs. When I say change, I mean more like be how Bruce Lee put it, be like water. Water can crash, water can flow, water fills the vessel that you put it in. It's just very flowy, very free-flowing, doesn't kind of stay rigid and can go with the flow. That's really what we got to do, is kind of just move with the moment, because the moment is now so fast that to try to stay locked into anything doesn't seem correct, in my opinion. So if we're tribal by nature, and that kind of system has been a little bit maybe weaponized or stolen or used in a different way, I think it's kind of appropriate to shift into this tune method, because a shirt could be stolen from you, a style could be stolen from you, but a tune, even if stolen from you, is still something that you can maintain. It can't be taken from you. It can stay with you forever, kind of, So there's just this strength in connecting over these things. Maybe just like how music is, how music makes you feel a certain way. The tune is more of a mental state. It makes you more responsible for how you're feeling, versus if you're wearing kind of this like hockey jersey or this football team jersey, you're kind of now associated with it just by proxy of wearing the symbolism of that tribe or whatever. But a tune is a sense of mind, it's a sense of being, it's a sense of like maybe choosing right or wrong in the moment. And it's not so much right or wrong, good or evil. It's kind of like posi tune or negi tune. And a positive tune is warm, inviting, calming, and a negative tune is like forceful and maybe pushes stuff away. And you use them for whatever the appropriate course of action is. And I think that it's important to have both, not only maybe in your own arsenal, but to have a diversified group of people who can use both of those skills aptly. That way maybe you don't have to have such a heavy leaning into whichever one you don't prefer, if you don't prefer one. But like I said, I think it's very good to have a well-rounded sense of both, just because it kind of is like a superpower. You can flex and flow appropriately in the situation, that, whatever situation arises. And going with this a little bit deeper, I feel like a tone versus a visual representation is a little bit easier to understand what it is that is being conveyed, versus imagery always has the possibility of being misinterpreted, kind of because of whatever the individual meaning is to whatever it is that's being put on there. But I think that a tone is like kind of way harder to misrepresent, because it almost has like a natural underpinning as to what it's trying to convey. It's there's not very much music that is, there's not very many songs maybe that are kind of obtuse as to what it's trying to convey. It's usually a sweet song, a heavy metal hardcore song, a jazz song, acid rock, whatever. It's all kind of has that purpose, and it's not really ambiguous as to what it's trying to do. Even some stuff like, Pink Floyd or something that's very vibey and jamming and whatever, it's for that purpose. It's just to kind of ride some kind of musical thought wave. But I think it's important to kind of not maybe have so many flags or standards anymore, as it is to just have that sense of tune. And am I tuned with the people that I'm around? And it's not really that hard. You kind of can feel it. Imagine if you were playing a tune on a guitar or a trombone or something, and you went and tried to play with another group of people playing instruments, and it just doesn't vibe. You wouldn't be like, well, I'll just force it and sit here and just play this off-key shit that sucks, No, you'd go and try and find some people that you jam with the best. And in this metaphor or whatever, maybe you do have to play this kind of off-key stuff for a little bit until you find your group. But because playing is the most important part, trying to find it, But I do think don't stay stuck in these kind of offbeat spaces, especially if you know they're offbeat, Always be seeking to harmonize with those that want to harmonize with you. Because think about it. Think about when people sing and they come together, there's just something really magical about it. And then a bunch of people, like a chorus, there's definitely some higher energy level stuff going on there. So just kind of think about it. What is your tune? What is your feeling? What is your tone? Tune and tone kind of is the same thing. So if you're having kind of a rough tone or a rough tune, and then you're wondering why you're not getting maybe the response that you're hoping for, maybe it's because you got to dial back your tone or your tune, because you're trying to make a peaceful song, but you're singing heavy metal, It makes sense. There was this movie, and they had this piece of technology where they basically could put out a frequency, and it makes everybody kind of go crazy and get all violent and stuff. And I feel like it's something like that. It's not necessarily that specifically, but it's that this overall tone and tune kind of cues everybody into this like opposition type of standpoint, when it's more supposed to be, when you see them, you're like, hey, and there's supposed to be an opportunity for connection made, but it's kind of getting put back into almost like a jungle-y state where every animal kind of looks across the way at the other animal and they're like, hi, you're going to try and kill me? And it's just that it seems strange in the society that we've built for it to be that way. But we're making it that way, so it's not like it's out of the blue or anything. So I do think just like, what's your tune? And then if it's that way, I feel like you can kind of, you don't even have to call it out, but you can spot it. Whereas like somebody could be wearing a shirt that has a thing on it, and you like associate all this stuff with it, and you're like, what? You like this band or movie or slogan or statement? And they may have just been tired, plucked a shirt out and put it on, and not even been trying to send out that signal that day. But on the converse of that, if you're carrying this tune and the person's like, they're probably not in a hateful, want to fight and kill mood. Versus if they're over there too, like, maybe they're ready for a little bit of action, They've been listening to too much Slayer after their morning coffee, which is okay. But just kind of know what you're getting into there. It's so that it's not a mystery. But it's not. With the tune, it's really on the face, like what it is right there. There's no ambiguity, really, or very little. So in these past conversations, in these past podcasts, I think maybe through further thinking and discussing and kind of going through stuff, that tribes is maybe the wrong word, because it kind of pulls us backwards. It kind of takes us to like this tribal state where things were not as well understood from a greater sense. So I think that's why we don't want to pull backwards into the tribe. we want to push forwards into the tune, because the tune really breaks everybody into on or off or up or down. And it doesn't necessarily mean good or bad, because that's kind of where you can get lost in the whole tribal thing, is that if I'm wearing a marking, I'm now completely associated with whatever the marking is associated with, versus if I'm just singing a tune, that kind of just has one spectrum of understanding. And it has a little bit of variation, but way less than the infinite sea of understanding for imagery. Build a tune, build a focus, build a understanding that, yes, is solid, but that can shift from encounter to encounter. That way you're more trying to meet somewhere in the middle, as opposed to just only playing the one tune. It's kind of hard to match that, you know, but if you're willing to kind of go on other tune adventures and other tune levels, then I think that you'll make way cooler, way crazier, way more fun music with that. And also, continuing on with this kind of thought process, I think that like the tribal aspect, if you're like wearing the shirt, it's less of an input from the person supporting the tribe, because all you're kind of doing is putting on the shirt, and then you kind of can set it and forget it almost, you know? You're just like now in the tribe, versus like carrying this tune is it's an active thing. You're having to participate every day in doing it. So you kind of never really get disconnected from your piece of the thing. You're actually, am I singing the tune to the highest quality? Am I not? And it's not ambiguous as to what part you're playing in this thing. Whereas I feel like maybe if you're just wearing the shirt, sometimes it can feel like you get wrapped up in the motions of the thing, you know, without even realizing that you're wanting to do that. It's kind of like going to the football game and then your team causes a riot or something, and now you're like part of it. Otherwise, you're going to get smashed by the other team or something. It's kind of like guilt by association almost through the tribal aspect. And I think that maybe that's why we're almost being pulled back towards being tribal, because you have to associate on some lesser level, less conscious level, and just go with the flow. Versus, like I said, with this tune thing, if everybody is screaming a negative tune, you're not even going to go over there and hang out with them, because you are already going to, as you approach, realize, oh, wait, maybe that's not what I want to be associated with. Versus if it's like their tribe sign is some nice, fun thing that's meant to lure you in, and then by the time you're there, it's something different. That's just a little bit of a harder, you know, pill to swallow. Versus if it's right on the forefront and it's being kind of sang or said or upheld through that way, I think it's just way harder to manipulate that or change it into some false thing, some falsehood that can be manipulated. In a weird way, think about this if it's like you're asking somebody how they're doing, and they're going to choose a symbol: feeling good, feeling great, feeling okay, not that bad. These are all words that can be misunderstood or misinterpreted depending on the individual. But what if you ask somebody, I know this doesn't sound dumb, but what if you ask somebody to sing me a tune real quick, which is how I'm going to tell how you're feeling? And they're like, la, 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 la. You can kind of tell maybe they're not on their full hitter, you know what I mean? On their full tune, on their full swing, you know? And then the same scenario, you walk in, sing me the tune, and they're like, whoa, yeah, just pumped, you know what I mean? So it's just, I think there is going to have to develop a better way to kind of project ourselves, especially in this post phone era where everything's going through a filter or an intermediary or a conduit. I think there needs to kind of be this greater sense of self that's almost not as corruptible as these kind of smaller fractals that we've been broken into. So yeah, almost like I said, that first episode was losing your tribe. And it's not like I was trying to push for that losing your tribe is bad. And it is in the old sense. But what it is they've plucked you from your tribe and then inserted you into another tribe. So you're still on this base level, but now you're disconnected from your original kind of source of energy and source of uplifting. So I think if that's the case, you kind of just almost have to remember the tune of like being positive and to be able to overcome whatever, because otherwise you're tuning into that other thing, which is almost like the ability to be thought for. If you find yourself singing a negative tune and you don't want to sing it, then stop and find a better tune to sing. Don't just sing it because that's like the only one that you feel like you have access to. But I totally understand, because that's all we're really being given now, is these kind of like heavy metal albums, when sometimes you want to listen to jazz, you know, which is totally awesome. I love heavy metal, and I think there's a time and a place for all that stuff, but there is a time when you're trying to just chill and listen to some jazz, you know? So be able to flex and flow in between, and you'll really be able to gain as much power from all the experiences that you can, and not be stuck into one set of standards or wants. Just like you go to a show and there's like an overall theme, an overall tune, it's not a surprise when you go there what they're trying to convey there. Yeah, it's find your tune, not find your tribe, you know? So like, don't go to the show, the hardcore show or the jazz show or the ska show or whatever, just dressed up to try and connect through dressing up to be a part of these things. You go to support the actual bands that you really like. Therefore, the actual bands that are the best get pushed to the top. And it's not about what you're wearing, who's the coolest, and all this other bullshit that I think every system eventually is bombarded by these factors. But it's up to you and whoever supports the system to really get down to the truth of what it is that you're liking about this system. And it's usually not what we're buying or wearing or selling. It's about the experience itself. It's about what's happening in these spaces. What is the tune? You know, what are we pushing for? What is being created? And are there even spaces left to go to where it's not just about purchasing something or being part of somebody else's standard or tribe or whatever, you know? So super duper important to figure out what your tune is. What is your attitude? What are you singing every day? And just be aware, and maybe you don't have to necessarily be courteous, but as far as for where you're trying to apply your tune, but don't be dumb and think that if you try to apply it in a place where it's not wanted or welcome, that it's going to be a good outcome. There's this thing where it's like my choice, my reality and all this stuff, but that doesn't negate the fact that there is something else going on bigger than you that may not respond how you want or deem fit to respond. It would be like saying, hey, Mr. Jungle Tiger, the law says you're not allowed to eat me, and the tiger has not even listened to anything you said and is already pouncing to rip your face off. So know the difference between what you like and feel and what is actually out there in the world. Yeah, who knows? The loss of the tribe might be a natural thing. It might be just as the system gets bigger and bigger, you have to find a new way to kind of break it down. And like I said, the marking your skin or your shirt or whatever might just be too small of a method because there's so many of us and so many different ways to see all those symbols that you have to have a better way to break it down. So think about it more like as you see someone, you either say hello or fuck you. And if you say the second one, you know to be like, whoop, just kidding. Don't want to go into that scenario, you know? For them to be faking a tune, it takes so much more effort than just to be wearing a costume of the thing that is trying to subvert your understanding. And it's not to say somebody couldn't lie by singing the wrong tune, but I just think that it's more evident in that falsification through singing than it would be to just calmly be wearing a shirt that says so much extra stuff or be carrying a flag that is associated with so much extra stuff. Well, that's it for this episode. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one. Peace.
DFTW, yeah, you.